Gear ratios are a hot topic. And I'm not even joking, it's actually quite a fascinating subject once you start to understand the ins and outs. Now, what I'm talking about are the number of teeth you've got here down on your cassette and up here on your chain rings. Differences in the number of teeth and the combination of the two will make a massive difference as to how fast you can ride and what kind of gradients you can ride up. Now, what we're not going to be able to do in this video is say exactly what you yourself is going to need in terms of gear ratios, but what we are going to be able to do is explain how they work, and then you can go away and decide what works for you. Right, let's start with the very basics. Your gear ratio effectively determines how far you travel forward for one complete revolution of the pedals. And what you really need to know is that the smaller the cog is on the rear cassettes here, the further you'll travel. And conversely, the larger the chainring at the front here, the further you'll move forward for that complete revolution. Now, there are loads and loads of tables online which you can take a look at for gear ratios, gear inches, etc, etc. But without wanting to send you over to a complete world of boredom, I'm going to explain a couple of very simple things with real world examples. So, if we take a 50 tooth chainring and combine it with an 11 tooth on the back, we're going to be travelling forward 9.6 metres for one complete revolution of the pedals on a normal size road wheel. If we go to the other extreme, take a 34 tooth small front chainring, combine that with a 25 tooth on the back, we're going to travel 2.9 metres for the same size wheel. So that's less than a third of the amount. So you can see just how important gears are for climbing up hills, different terrain, etc. So now you know the basics of how gear ratios work, but what sort of options are available to you? Well, the answer is quite a few. Let's start here with the front chain set and chain rings. As I said, this bike here has got a 53 tooth big ring and a 39 tooth small ring, and that is what I would personally call a standard chain set. It's what you'll see the professionals using pretty much all the way through the season for all kinds of terrain. However, now that I've retired, I'm using what's called a compact chain set, which is much smaller. And this area here, where the chainring is slightly smaller in diameter. Now, these chain sets generally come with a 50 tooth big chainring combined with 34, or a 52 tooth big chainring combined with a 36 inner. Now, the great thing about these is you're still able to go pretty fast when you're in the big ring and all the way down the block at the back, but you've got that smaller ring inside to get you up the steeper climbs, or perhaps like me, when you've just got that little bit less fit. Now, there is one further option, in fact, and that's a triple chain set, more commonly found on mountain bikes. The great thing about that is you can have a really nice big outer ring for going fast. You've got that second ring in the middle there going up most climbs, and if you get really caught out, it's a really steep climb, you've just hit the wall, got no energy left, you've got that extra kind of safety gear on the inside which you can come down to. So that's the front chain set there. In terms of your options for the cassette here at the back, well, back in the days of 7-speed cassette, which is 7 cogs on the back, trying to run a ratio of an 11 tooth small cog all the way up to a 25 tooth cog at the top was quite difficult, and I say that because it meant that there was quite a big gap between some of the cogs at the back. So you might be going up one gear at a certain speed, you're spinning too much, go back down to where you were, and you're just grinding a little too much as well. But the great thing these days is that most manufacturers, especially at the top end of their ranges, have got 11 speed at the back, so 11 cogs here, and that does mean that you can go from 11 up to 25, even 28, and not have huge jumps between the cogs, which is not going to change your cadence much when you change up one gear. Okay, so now you know the ins and outs of gear ratios, and you also know what options you've got available to you here at the cassette and here at the chainrings. But how do you then decide exactly what's going to be right for you personally? Well, you're going to need to give yourself a very short questionnaire. Ask yourself things like, do I race a lot? Do I like to go on very short, sharp group rides? Am I predominantly riding on flat roads? Well, if the answer is yes to any of them, then it's likely that you're going to want a traditional crankset and quite a close ratio cassette here on the back. Conversely, if you live in an area where it's going to have a lot of steep climbs, you like to do a lot of climbing, you're not as fit as perhaps you'd like to be, or you've just got into the sport, well then you're probably going to want to opt for a compact chain set or even a triple, and then quite a wide ratio on the back to allow you to get over any climbs. Lastly, if you're a junior who's racing, make sure that you remember that you're going to be restricted in most countries to the size of gear that you can use to 52 by 14. If you'd like to learn how to change your gears like a pro, click up there. And if you'd like to learn how to improve your gear selection whilst you're riding, click down there. And finally, if you haven't already subscribed to GCN, it's absolutely free and all you've got to do is click on me.